I'm Eric Greitens. You should know I'm a husband and father. My wife Sheena and I have two little boys, Joshua and Jacob. And like all parents, we want to build a great Missouri for them to grow up in. And the fact is, here in Missouri, career politicians have been failing us. And when we look around and we see kids who aren't getting an education, crumbling infrastructure, trouble in our economy, Sheena and I think parents and families around Missouri are concerned. I'm excited about this race. I'm a political outsider. I've never run for office before, never been involved in politics before. A little about myself. I'm a native Missourian. Both of my parents, were proud to raise us here in Missouri. My mom was an early childhood special education teacher. My dad worked for the Department of Agriculture. Got a scholarship, was able to go off to college. And after I finished my education, I joined the U.S. Navy. Became a Navy SEAL. I did 4 deployments in the global war on terrorism. And then when I came back home, I started an organization called The Mission Continues to help veterans come back home and get quality private sector jobs, to starting to run their own businesses. And I've seen from my time, whether it's doing humanitarian work overseas, serving as a Navy SEAL, running my own business, or helping other veterans to run their businesses, that this is a great state in Missouri, but we need strong leadership in the governor's office, and that's what we're going to provide. I've seen how hard this is to do. I know what it takes to be an entrepreneur, to put yourself and your family on the line to start and to create a business. I have also seen, working with so many veterans who've come home, how important it is for people to have quality, good-paying jobs. It's about more than the money. It's also about a sense of purpose and a sense of dignity and a sense of meaning. And that's why it's so important that we create a thriving economy here in Missouri with more private sector paychecks and bigger private sector paychecks. And I'm excited to do that as governor. That's going to be job number 1. I think this is really simple. We need to become a right-to-work state because it leads to more jobs and higher wages. And when you look at the evidence of what's happened in other states, it's become clear. More jobs and higher wages with right to work. And look, I know that my opponent, who's a career politician, is going to try and deceive people about this issue. He's received over $9 million from union bosses. And he'll tell people that right to work outlaws unions. It's not true. In fact, in other states like Indiana, where they've signed right to work legislation, today they have more private sector union members than when they signed right to work. All right to work does is it says that the worker should have the freedom to choose whether or not they want to contribute dues. It's that simple, and that's why we need to support worker freedom. And when we do so, we're going to help us to build a thriving economy here in Missouri so that more people come, that they grow and build and expand businesses here in Missouri, and so that here in Missouri, again, we can have a thriving private sector economy. But right to work is key, and I'm going to sign it when I'm governor. Missouri was named the 4th worst judicial hellhole in the country. Now that's a terrible signal to send to businesses. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce, their Institute for Legal Reform, said that Missouri had the 42nd worst judicial environment in the country for business. Look, we need to have an open door for businesses. We need to be welcoming businesses and helping businesses to grow here. And frivolous lawsuits, they're hurting businesses, they're hurting doctors, they're hurting the people of Missouri. And that's why we have to have a comprehensive and clear program of tort reform so that we can have fair courts where people can get a fair hearing. And that's going to be critical for people and businesses across Missouri, and that's why we're going to get tort reform done when I'm governor. My number 1 job as governor is jobs. Most important thing for us to do. And that's why we need to engage in labor reform. It's why we need to have judicial reform. It's also why we need to lower the tax rate on corporations and on families here in the state of Missouri. We have to do these things so that we can build a thriving economy here in the state of Missouri. I'm also going to reduce regulations. We're going to improve the efficiency of government. We need to do all of these things so that we can build a thriving economy. That's job number 1. We also have to address the public safety crisis here in Missouri. It's hurting people all over the state, and it also is actually affecting the business climate. When you have neighborhoods that are riddled with crime, one of the things that happens is it becomes harder to start, run, and grow a business. We have to make sure that we're protecting the people of Missouri. It's the government's most important, most essential function, and we're going to address the public safety crisis here. We also need to look at education. Over the course of the last couple of decades, Missouri is falling farther and farther behind. Every kid in Missouri deserves a fair chance at the American dream. And then finally, we're going to clean up Jefferson City. You know, when I'm governor, we're going to ban all gifts from lobbyists. We're going to close this revolving door between legislators and special interests. And we're going to put in place term limits for every statewide office holder. This has to be a government that serves the interests of the people. And that's why ethics is so important. Because that corruption is hurting people. It's hurting our businesses. It's hurting our schools. It's hurting the public safety environment. And when I'm governor, we're going to clean up Jefferson City. This is a big contrast in this election. Chris Koster is an anti-business candidate. I am a pro-business candidate. And when you look at the contrast between Chris Koster and I, they couldn't be more clear. I mean, Chris Koster is a crooked, corrupt, career politician who spent his entire life in politics. I'm an outsider, I'm a Navy SEAL, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm the founder and CEO of The Mission Continues, and a husband and father. Chris Koster is the guy who is identified by the New York Times as the most corrupt attorney general in the country. I'm running on a strong ethics platform. Chris Koster is the guy who failed us at Ferguson. Our chief law enforcement officer who failed to do his duty at Ferguson. As a humanitarian worker, as a Navy SEAL, I've always been willing to go to the front lines, and I'm going to do the same thing as governor. Chris Koster is also a guy whose campaign is funded by unions and trial lawyers. When I'm governor, we're going to pass right to work, we're going to get labor reform done, we're also going to get judicial reform done. This is a bright, clear contrast in this race, and I know that when we go to the people of Missouri and we present that contrast to them, that they're going to vote for our campaign, that they're standing with us. They're with us on this campaign because they know that the status quo has been failing them. They know that crooked career politicians have been failing them, and we're coming in with fresh blood, innovative ideas to build a thriving economy here in Missouri. This decision is really simple. If you're happy with the way things are going, if you're happy with Missouri, which is 47th in economic growth over the last decade, 42nd in job growth, 43rd in wage growth, then vote for my opponent. Because you can be sure that with him, nothing is going to change. But if instead you want to build a thriving economy, if instead you want to have a partner in the governor's office who knows what it's like to run a business themselves, who is excited to partner with you and to work with you to build a thriving economy with more quality private sector paychecks, with bigger private sector paychecks, then join our campaign. Get involved in this campaign, because this is a campaign for the future of Missouri. And if we step up and we do this together, we can take our state in a new direction.